For a man to become a god, he must have a plurality of wives. For a woman to become a goddess, she must be married to a man who lives plurality.
That voice, we know it's Warren Jeffs, and this is Preaching Evil, A Wife on the Run with Warren Jeffs. We hear about Naomi's story, and listen, this is such a common story we hear coming out of the FLDS.
So when I was a senior in high school, and I had asked my father if I could go to school, he told me, well, I feel good about it, but let me talk to the prophet.
Naomi wanted to go to school to be a nurse, but as with anybody within the FLDS community, you need to go to the prophet before you could make any life choices.
The next weekend after that, I went and told him that I had taken my test and I had got in and that I needed to register for my classes. That's when my father says, well, you're probably not going to be going to school because you're going to get married.
Imagine you're in high school, you have these hopes, you have these dreams, these things you want to accomplish, and you're told you cannot do them because you were called to get married to a man with many wives.
I figured I would be a plural wife. In fact, I actually wanted to be a plural wife because I didn't want to marry anybody that was my age.
Naomi didn't want to marry anybody her age, and a lot of that has to do with how they were conditioned. They were conditioned to believe that girls were so much more mature than boys, that it was okay for girls to marry men because they were just as mature as them, which isn't true. It's not true. This is a belief system that is put into their heads in order to get them to agree to marry these men who are much older.
On my graduation day, when the curtain opened and we were sitting there, we looked out on the audience. The prophet, Rulon, was there, and he looked at me and he waved. I just thought, is he waving at me?
Rulon is at the high school graduation. He's at the high school graduation not to support them, not to show his involvement in the community and the community growing and moving on through different milestones of life. Oh no, he was there to have his next pick.
And so I kind of looked around, and when I looked back at him, he goes like this. And that's when I started to think, am I going to marry Rulon Jeffs?
What would you think if an 83-year-old was sitting at a high school graduation and pointing at girls like, that one's mine now?
It was a surprise because I didn't think that I would marry the prophet, but I'd been taught my whole life that was such an honorable thing to do. And I tried to look at it that way.
Naomi tried to look at it that way. At 18 years of age, there's no way she is going to look at this 83-year-old man and think, yeah, that's the one I want. That's the guy. This is just so much brainwashing, so much indoctrination, but even hearing the hesitation in her voice saying, yeah, it's not really what I wanted to do, but it's supposed to be a high honor. So it wasn't a high honor. It was a trap. She was the 17th wife. 17 wives. He didn't have to marry her. He definitely had the number of wives he needed to be a god in the glory of whatever. But he wanted another one. He wanted a new one, and he wanted a young one. And this is why we have such an eye on the FLDS, is because of practices like this, of being brainwashed to believe that as a teenager, you should be happy, not just happy, but you should be honored to marry this man in his 80s. And that's a problem. Naomi should have been able to live her life as she wanted and go to college. But that was taken away from her by this belief system that says you must get married and you must do what the prophet says.